Welcome to QuickBytes, the only show that doesn't know how to teach you cooking, but it can teach you about video games. Today we'll be talking about Marvel Rivals. Marvel Rivals? I think I've heard of that game. Wow, really? You have? Crazy, you and the entire population! Anyways, today's cringe rating is normal. It's a normal game. There's nothing going on in it. I thought it was an Overwatch clone. Yeah, no, that's definitely an Overwatch clone. Oh, 100% that's an Overwatch clone. Have you ever seen an Overwatch? Is that an Overwatch? Sounds like it's an Overwatch. Is that an Overwatch reference? I think it's 100%. Oh my god, that's definitely an Overwatch. Jesus Christ! All right, I get it. Fine. It's an Overwatch clone. Oh, first episode already in the worst rating? Yeah, that's Overwatch will do that to you. Overwatch is one of the worst games to ever be created. God knows I hate Overwatch. Have you even played Overwatch? No. But then how are you gonna make the joke? You can't make the joke about it being an Overwatch clone without playing Overwatch. Who cares? Everybody else makes the jokes. Anyways, okay, so Marvel Rivals was released on December 5th of 2024, a very recent game in gamer terminology. By that, it might as well be a new baby, and yet it still has millions of players pretty much every other day. Though it's not surprising when you consider that this game has already been rehashed out for the last 20 years. And if you think that Overwatch was the first one, oh boy, do I have a surprise for you. All I have to say is Quake 2. If you don't get it, that's too bad. If you do, I'm sorry. Anyways, it's clear that it's obviously trying to copy the most popular version of the formula, at least the most well-known aspects of it, using the Overwatch mantra. How the game modes are set up with the 6v6 team-oriented gameplay being PvP. Although it sounds very basic on the surface, a lot of the more specifics that Overwatch has been doing for quite a while now are actually in this game. Whether it be how certain characters are not one for one, but very similar in style. I would try and give more examples, but I don't play Overwatch. The best one I know is the sniper lady. I'm sorry to all the Overwatch people. But the sniper lady from Overwatch versus Scarlet Witch, for example, or whatever. Those two are not necessarily hand in hand, but the basic mechanics of how her sniper works and how the positioning of the characters, the movement, and how quick pace it is, and how you're supposed to be on the back lines rather than up and close and personal with your sniper. Of course, it sounds obvious, but it definitely feels like they're going for that aesthetic. I feel the Overwatch similarities, but I feel like this game definitely has enough variety to change up the formula to where it feels like it's definitely trying to do its own thing when it comes to like how many characters are available and how different their playstyles are, widening in variety. For example, you have characters like Loki, who's specifically a healer who can also separate into clones of himself throughout the battlefield that can attack other players while they go ahead and heal their team, also while being able to throw a good bit of damage without having to feel like it's primarily a DPS class, to someone like the Winter Soldier, who I main is supposed to be up close and personal with his gun. He can't have much mobility outside of that, although you can try and play him in the back lane. He won't be able to get much use out of it because the range of his gun is actually pretty weak. Of course, there's the special abilities that are also pretty popularized by Overwatch. Usually in those type of games, they only give you a good bit of damage off of one player or multiple, like a group of people, but it's never anything too big. This game, on the other hand, decides, let's just kill an entire team if you just play your cards right, which is very funny, but very worrying. Not for the reasons you expect. Like, I'm okay with watching my entire team die to a Jeff main. That's not my problem. That's okay. It's fine. I'm normal. The real reason I worry about this is because they're most likely going to use this as leverage to balance out the characters more. The problem with the balancing in most PvP games is that they go too hard in one or two angles. Either they try and balance the characters to make sure everyone is equally as disappointing as that one specific character that got popular once, or they make everyone as equally busted and disappointing and depressing. So now you have no fun in trying to actually play whatever characters in the meta because there's always going to be at least one specific character that can break your entire moveset with one button press. Not to say that's an issue yet, simply to say that it could be one. Considering how many characters are in this game and how much fun it is right now seeing how much the characters vary from each other, I personally enjoy the game's state right now. They did a good job making each class feeling individual as possible without feeling like retreading the same ground over and over again, which is surprising. Once again, as I mentioned before, they have 33 characters. The majority of the characters go into the DPS class, usually having pretty alright movesets, heavy amounts of damage, but mid-tier when it comes to health. There's also the tank class. They have a high amount of health and a high amount of defense options, and for the majority of them, some can even reflect shield. Some characters like Captain America can even do pretty insane things like reflect back some of the instant kills for the entire team, which is super fun, but also kind of weird considering that there's not really any options to defend that type of stuff outside of those specific moves tied to those specific characters, which hopefully will be addressed at a later point, but for now it's fine. The weird thing about the tanks is that while they do have pretty solid mobility for a tank and usually pretty solid health options, their damage output isn't that good. And although tanks aren't supposed to be the main option for damage, they are supposed to be more so the shields of the team. Considering how little some characters like Captain America or even Groot have in terms of damage options, or even more confrontational options, considering that they're supposed to be up front and in the center to protect the rest of the team, it is pretty surprising that they haven't thought of any other ways to actually circumvent that problem rather than just simply making them a boulder. Although I appreciate the thought and effort, I feel like they definitely should change that in the later patches, which they most likely will. Let's just hope that they don't destroy the entire game while they do that. Now the final class is the healers. The healers are weird in this game. Like, weird. A lot of them have a good variety of option when it comes to damage. Their healing output can range depending on how much damage you're doing at the time of the gameplay, how much you're focusing on attackers during the actual sessions of gameplay. Their damage output can range from pretty high, substantially enough to be considered a DPS at some point, while their healing can be matched pretty low. Unlike the tanks, they actually have a lot of options for closing up gaps, allowing them to stay back without having to force themselves onto other players, and also having a wide variety of ways to heal the players without having to damage themselves. The most notorious example of this is Jeff. Jeff the Shark has a single output of damage that does a lot considering his role in the game. If you're very good at the game, you can get about 12 kills on average without, dropping your health because of how quickly the moves fire without having to drop the healing of your other teammates. They definitely don't leave a lot to be desired when it comes to the healing realm of things and the DPS, but I do think it does destroy a bit of the niche when it comes to the healers, because most healers really want to focus specifically on healing in video games. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in this game it doesn't feel like you have that option. It feels like you're forced into a specific pattern when it comes to the healers, where you need to be on top of your teammates while also making sure to deal out damage. Something akin to Final Fantasy XIV, but on a much grander scale. Which definitely means that there's a lot more tight gameplay that you have to worry about, but at the same time, it gives the healer more options as a healer if they want to be DPS, or they can just stay back and focus on healing. Although it does make it weaker in terms of actually allowing classes to be their specific roles. So everybody has to be doing damage, even whether they want to or not, because this game does not favor people who focus specifically on the role. If you were to have a tank who was shielding all the time and making sure that their teammates were alive and focusing on defense rather than trying to push and directly attack without having to do any healing, then they're going to be punished for that because of the damage output of the DPS and the healer. If you have a DPS that wants to stay back without having to focus on doing as much damage and making sure that the point and other areas are captured or focused on, they will be punished because of how much the tanks are able to do with their limited moveset when it comes to the defense and damage options. And of course, the healers have a significantly weaker amount of health than the majority of the classes, but they still have enough damage options to also ruin a DPS's day. This game doesn't like people being in the back. I know that for sure. I don't know why they don't like them being in the back, but they don't. Everyone has to be up front almost all the time. And it does create a very tight atmosphere of where you need your entire team to be sitting on a point or you will be punished. It's a very interesting dichotomy comparing it to other games similar like Overwatch. Of course, you need your team at all times, but they can be at separate places without having to force a sense of unity. You can basically act on your own. But in this game, a lot of the time you can't do that, especially with the healers, where you're forced to be, like I said, around your teammates and make sure that there's enough separation of the healing and damage, and also focusing on making sure that you stay alive at the same time. The healer probably has the most work in this entire game just because of how much their class is basically the most average, quote unquote, where they do have to worry about everything including themselves, compared to the tanks who only have to focus on themselves, or the DPS who only have to worry about their teammates rather than themselves. It's a very odd position that most likely will change with the balancing updates. I just simply hope that they don't ruin it like they did a plentiful other PvP games. And this is coming from a non-PvP player. I only play rhythm games for the majority of my life. This game just happens to be the most interesting out of everything that I've seen. So take it with a grain of salt, basically. Now, I will say most of the modes are very bog standard, so there's not much to say there besides, you know, it's a rehash of most, like carry the payload, capture the flag, and stuff like that. It's fun for what it is. It's mostly carried by how the actual gameplay goes through rather than the gameplay itself. Some of the new winter modes that have come around recently are pretty interesting, but they don't really add anything special to the game. Now, before I continue on with this next part, I just want to let you know this game is backed by $1 billion+ company, so anything that is negative criticism is allowed because they can make any type of money. They're working on a gacha game right now that probably will outlive my entire family generation in terms of revenue. So take this with a grain of salt. The art and the animation in the game definitely have some merit to them. They have a lot of creativity that the majority of other games in this type of field and genre don't focus on too much. They all have a very standard asset feel where they're not trying to focus and trying to give the game too much personality, but just enough where it feels like it's different. This game, on the other hand, has a very art-focused design because they actually have the money to do so while also being able to focus on the gameplay. So there's definitely a lot of creative decisions. I don't feel like it's the best when it comes to the art style. It doesn't feel good, you know? Like when you portray a lot of these characters, they feel like they should be in a comic book's art style represented by their true nature. And then there's Wolverine, who's basically every single point of why I don't like the art style in this game. And I'm not even a big comic book nerd. I don't know the first thing about Logan. I don't know who Wolverine is as a person and his character traits. I feel like they actually did a pretty good job when it comes to his like characterization in the game. It's just his design and how he's portrayed just feels off to me. And same can be said with most characters in the art and design category. They feel substantially off than their usual appearances in most other games. And I know that, you know, sticking to the source material can be pretty hard and, you know, trying to make gameplay differences and stuff to vary them. I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Other side of the spectrum is the animations. The animations in this game and the actual general art style outside of the characters is very vibrant and very nice. It has a very good sense of difference that I feel like is very interesting, and it's very entertaining to watch. You can definitely tell that this game has a high budget just simply due to how fleshed out the animations are and how excessive they are. You know, the actual character animations, the win animations, special win and loss animations are very cool. I like them. They're awesome. The skins and such are also very cool. They're very, you know, they have like an Evangelion reference or just like a cool skin that looks like Evangelion in there. So, you know, I vibe with it, but I don't think it's, you know, the best in the world. Oh, that's crazy, guys. You know, the non-animator doesn't know how to, I mean, he talks about animation. He's so good at his job, right? Yeah. Anyways, let's see. What else can I talk about? Since this game is a very big hit right now, there's a lot of people that don't know what they're doing and have saturated the game with a lot of newbies and people that don't want to learn the intricacies of the game. Although it's not the most in-depth experience when it comes to playing certain characters and stuff, they definitely have a lot more to offer than people want to make it out to be. A lot of the achievements actually show off, you know, how the game is supposed to be designed and such. But the problem is that nobody actually focuses on like the specifics. They're just kind of like, oh, well, let me try this. And then, you know, next thing you know, they have like 50 kills in one game. And I'm just sitting there like, I could barely get one. How did you get that many? I don't know. I don't pay attention to this darn game. I just enjoy it for fun. I mean, despite my whole rambling and this whole session, it's a very fun game. I mean, if you turn your brain off, you know, you just focus on the game, especially with friends, it can be a very fun collaborative effort. You know, hopefully that the game grows in the right direction and that $1 billion+ that they have, you know, and that gacha game they're doing gets them to not ruin the game actively and learn that they only need to make small changes at a time. But I mean, there's only one way to tell, and that's through time, hopefully. I don't really have much else to say, but yeah, so that was Marvel Rivals. I mean, I'm not gonna give it a rating. I'm just here to just talk my thoughts about it, but yeah, I would say that was a quick bite. Hey, you see what I did there? I said the name of the show, so that means we're rolling credits, right? Roll it. I don't know what else to say. Oh my God. That was like, as they say, the first episode is always the worst episode. So take this with a grain of salt. I am not feeling the best right now. I just needed to get something out because we have not posted in a year. Happy 1 year plus anniversary for this channel. We wanted to do a lot more, but planning takes a while and games are hard. Who would have guessed? But hopefully you can stick around. We'll try and make more videos. It's not that hard. I mean, we have stuff in the works. I have like 100+ hours of footage just sitting in the catalog of stuff right now. So I hope that you enjoyed my ramblings, and I hope you have a nice day. Brought to you by the Bit Machine, TM. Oh my God, that was almost an hour of ramblings. That was horrible.